Black Lightning's actually pretty great.
Superhero, he was black. He said, this is for the street. Black Lightning's back.
If anyone's wondering, I'm counting this as part of the Arrowverse thing because it got rolled in from that Crisis event. I hadn't seen the show at all since I decided to do this, so this is just me watching this because I said I was gonna catch up on all the Arrowverse shows. And, yeah, well, I gotta say, on the whole, this is probably the best drama of the lot. I'm about halfway through Supergirl, and unless it gets substantially better in that department, I feel confident making that statement. But I think it handles the drama of the whole superhero genre better than the other shows. Decent lip service paid to, the physical harm that it can cause to people. There's a decent amount of stress it can put on a family, that kind of thing. And it's, again, I just think it handles this on the whole the best. Black superhero, but he has a white best friend, so he's not racist. Though I'm sure that's just to keep up appearances. Probably has a huge problem with wearing white after Labor Day. In case anyone's wondering, that's a joke for one person. My only real complaint with the show is that it can be a little woke at times. This wasn't so much a problem in the first season, I felt like. The social issues were given more of a... The main character is constantly quoting people like Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela, or I think I heard an Epictetus quote in there, things like that. So it was going for the more common humanity, identity politics sort of thing. But the second season got, there's just a few things.
Trying to steal it? What? No. Oh, no. You're trying to steal my car.
Nobody is going to make the assumption that a pretty black girl is going to steal their car. Stereotypes don't come from nowhere, and people's brains aren't so fried on racism that they see black and assume car thief. They're also going to look at the way that the girl is dressed, which that doesn't scream criminal to me, or I don't think anyone else. And they're also going to take a look at the biggest factor. Hi, she's a girl. Women don't do as much crime as men. I'm sorry, they just don't. So people really don't hold that stereotype about black women because people don't hold that stereotype about women. Not to mention, hi, she's pretty. People make assumptions that pretty people probably aren't up to no good. It's like one of the most pervasive biases in human nature. This just comes across as like you're trying to make a point without trying to accurately reflect anything. My biggest problem with the change in season 2 was that the main character's Jefferson Pierce, he's a principal at a local school, right? Well, because he was busy being, he wasn't there when there was a crisis, and the school board decided to replace him with a new principal.
Hear about your meeting with the students. Classy.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the transition is easier for them.
Right, well, let's hope it worked.
Listen, Mr. Lowry.
It's Principal Lowry.
I have a problem with this guy because, they're framing it like is a white principal who doesn't get these people, but it's like, regardless of where you are, Jefferson Pierce would have been a good principal because he's empathetic, understanding, a good role model to, anyone. And this guy is a bad principal because he's kind of neurotic, overly obsessed with the rules, kind of vindictive, that kind of thing. He's a bad leader regardless of the fact that he's white, but they're framing it as him being white as being the issue.
The school board found your replacement. His name is Mike Lowry.
He's white.
Yes.
It doesn't really gel with me. What would have been more interesting is if they started with this assumption, everyone had the assumption that the white guy wouldn't get it, but he comes in and he's actually very kind and empathetic and all those good things, and maybe even then you could add some point in the story where even with all these great leadership abilities, even the most empathetic white person could never really get it. If that's how you wanted to take it, that would be a more interesting way than just making the guy awful all around. Because you put this guy in any sort of authority role and he's gonna make things worse. It's got nothing to do with the fact that he's white.
Mr. Lowry, welcome to Garfield.
Look, the problem I have with this wokeness, it's not representation issues. It's not like I'm complaining that, they're changing this white person into a black person. I honestly don't care that in Merlin, the love interest for Arthur is a black chick. You know what, fine, there weren't black people in Celtic England, but who gives a crap? It's a modern interpretation. And as long as not black-white relations aren't specifically part of a story in that scenario, I don't care. My problem with this kind of wokeness is more that shows that are woke have a tendency of not letting an opposing opinion through. They tend to strawman the opposition into something that is never really said. You know what, okay, I'm going to stop explaining it and just show you. Here's a clip from the show Dear White People.
Our great nation is built on that most famous of declarations. All men are created equal.
Equal? You could only vote if you owned land and didn't have a vagina.
Okay, one, I don't think that that's one thing that any professor would actually say. Nobody would say that it's a perfect document or whatever the hell he said. But there is a reasonable response to that statement. The adoption of the U.S. Constitution was still the largest advancement of human rights up until that point and laid the groundwork for the legal equality that we see today. So it's still an incredibly important document, and you shouldn't dismiss it out of hand. But they don't allow people to say that sort of thing because I don't know why. Problem with wokeness isn't that you're woke, it's that you won't let anyone else speak. Overall, though, I have to say, I don't consider this a deal breaker. You ever see that old movie, Role Models? This is the scene I think of when I see this type of thing.
You hate that too.
I don't hate it enough to let it ruin my day.
Yeah, I hate this, but I don't let it ruin my day. Overall, it's still a very good drama, and I do like the show. These are just tiny annoyances in an otherwise good show that I kind of wish they'd stop doing because, oh my god, you're so not helping. I'm going to get back to talking about the show's merits. I've gone on about this for too long. I have to say I like the villain in this series because he's intimidating without actually being, like, super powered, I don't think. Maybe he's more durable than the average person, I guess, and technically immortal, but he can't shoot lightning out of his dick, so we're, dealing on different power levels here. He just has a real intimidating presence that I find refreshing. I'm less impressed with the overall main plot. It's kind of just gang leaders are selling a drug that turns people into super-powered individuals or something, and, vaccinations from the past made superheroes or whatever. Your mileage might vary on how you find government conspiracy to be a interesting plot development. I'm kind of tired of it, but that's just because I look into most of the things that are supposedly based on real things and find out, yeah, this is actually pretty boring. Like, yeah, I wish the CIA was involved in getting cocaine into the country, but, a frickin' Senate, or was it the House, whatever, investigation cleared them, so they were just really doing boring CIA stuff and weren't very good at their jobs. In case you didn't know, the common conspiracy theory that the CIA brought drugs into the country, there was a congressional investigation into that, and, no. I do have to say, though, this is the only Arrowverse show in which I can say that the main character is my favorite character. In every other show, it's usually one of the side characters. But I like Jefferson Pierce. More so in season 1. And his, white best friend, as I mentioned earlier. I think it's actually the guy that raised him, whatever. Gamby, he's a local tailor who's an interesting case, shown to be a little bit more morally gray than he appears. Don't really want to spoil much more than that, but for lack of a better term, he's their guy in a chair. Overall, I think this is probably the best show that the Arrowverse has come up with, and I'm saying that even with the wokeness factor. It's not personally my favorite. I like a little bit of silliness, if I'm being honest. As I've said before, I think The Flash hits that balance better, but that's personally what I like. But I'll gladly watch the rest of the series from now on. It's, kind of made me happy I started doing this because, even if nobody's watching this video, I got to find a show that I like. And hey, if they cancel it, DC will just create another black electric-powered superhero. They've done it enough times before.
The Lone Ranger?
No, boy, it's me, Soul Power. And you think I named myself Black Vulcan? Hell no. I used to go by Supervolt. Black Vulcan was Aquaman's idea. And I said, well, maybe we should just call you Whitefish.